Hi, I'm John here at Showcase TV, and today we're going to talk about doing a basic studio light headshot setup, which you could use for family, friends, corporate, or in particular events, which this program is going to be about. So let's begin by going over to the camera. I have my DSLR set up on a pretty steady tripod. In this case, I'm using a Manfrotto Bogen tripod. I'm using my DSLR, and my friend Corey is going to assist me today as the model. So here's the way this works. I take the camera, I'm going to put it into a vertical shooting position, and I'm ready to shoot an image. Now, I have my main light set up to my right and to Corey's left. And the way I set this light up is I'd like it to be approximately 1 meter from the subject and just over his headline. So that's the basic starting position of this light. So once I have the light set up that way, the next step in the process is to take my exposure meter, and I'll do a flash reading to determine what the exposure is going to be. So let me activate the meter. And once it's done, I'm going to ask Corey to assist me. Corey, would you hold that right in front of your face? I've got the ISO set at 100, and I've got the shutter speed, which is the sync speed for this camera, also set at 1/100th of a second. So now, once I do an open flash, let me reactivate that. There you go. So now it's ready to go. Hold it up in front of your face. That's good. Don't touch the buttons, Corey. There you go. You're doing great. So once I activate the meter, it tells me that the exposure is 5.6. So right now, it's actually showing 5.6 and a half. So I'm going to set it between 5.6 and f8. That's the exposure, and that's the purpose of the exposure meter. You can arrive at that setting very, very quickly. All right, so the next step would be to shoot a trial exposure for my setup. So what I would do is set up, I've got Corey in my viewfinder, I frame it out as a nice headshot, and I'm ready to do the exposure. Now I need to tell you a little bit more about the light before I do that. This light comes in a kit. There are two lights, which comes with the light, the stand, and a nice soft box. We have numerous selections as far as lighting goes, but this is a basic event type light. Normally, I would run a cable from the light to the camera. The problem with using a cable, especially when you have young people or at events, is that the cable becomes a distraction, and we don't want anyone walking by and tripping over the cable. So for convenience, what I've set up is I have a transmitter on the top of the camera. This is a wireless radio transmitter that sends a signal over to a receiver, which I have here connected to the camera. So when the camera goes off, it signals the receiver and the light goes off. And this is a really, really big convenience, so I don't have cables running around the room. So let's go ahead now that you know how that's set up. Set up, Corey, right here. Look at me. Good. That looks great. We make an exposure, and of course, since I set it with the meter, it's right on the money. There are two things I notice, however, about this image. The first is that the left side, or excuse me, the right side of Corey's face, in other words, this side, which is away from the light, is very, very dark. So I have two choices. I can bring in a fill light, or I can use a reflector system. They both work beautifully. I happen to like the reflector system because it saves my second light for something else. So let's go ahead and bring in the reflector. So for today's shot, I'm going to use a 5-in-1 reflector, which comes in a kit with the reflector, the arm, and the stand, which allows me to shoot without the use of an assistant. And this is sunlight surface, so it reflects the same color light as you get from the strobe unit. So I want to bring this in nice and close. The distance I set it up next to Corey depends on exactly how much fill I want, and I want a fair amount of fill, so I want to get rid of that dark side. The next thing you ought to notice is that I put up a pop-up background just behind Corey. There are all kinds of background choices from paper to cloth. I like these because you can see it. All I've done is I popped it up and leaned it against the wall. And then last but not least, to give some separation between Corey, who happens to be wearing a blue shirt today, and this bluish type background, I'm going to bring in a background light. So that'll be the second light in the series, and that's why I generally recommend going with two light kits. And in the case of this light, I've put a set of barn doors to control the direction of the light and a grid spot, which I really like because it keeps the light condensed in a column as it hits the background. It gives a nice glow behind the subject. So I want to kind of line this up between the camera, the subject, and the background, about halfway between the subject and the background. So at this point, it looks like we're pretty well set. To give me a little freedom from the camera, rather than standing right on the camera, it gives me a chance to back off. I have the little receiver in my hand and the connected to the camera by way of this cable, and then I have the little transmitter in my hand. So now I can give some visual signals, some hand signals to Corey about maybe moving your eyes. I want your eyes right about here. Boom, shoot the picture, and there we have our headshot, beautifully lit with one light, a reflector, and a light on our background. So at this point, I want to give you one more bit of information. As you saw how easy that is, you should be able to zero in on a good exposure and a good setup within 1 or 2 frames. And as you saw by using the Polaris exposure meter, I got the exposure right on the money the first time. Now I want to add one more piece of equipment, and that's a USB cable, which I've kept down here in front of me. And the USB cable is going to connect to the camera to a USB port on one end, and the other end of this is going to go to our computer, and we're going to go ahead and connect the camera to the computer so I can then run the image directly from the camera into the computer, and then the computer sends it over to the printer for an immediate printout. So let's go ahead. I'll plug this in. It goes into a USB slot on the base of the camera located here. Boom. It's as easy as that. Then we'll run this over to the other end to the computer and the USB slot on the computer, and we'll go ahead and we'll make our print. Earlier you saw how we shot the headshot image using our DSLR. We have a couple of choices. I can run the image from the camera tethered to my computer as I've done here. So it makes it very, very convenient. I shoot the image comes up in Lightroom 4, which is on the screen here now. So let's take a brief look at that. Here's the image of Corey. And in Lightroom, I have a lot of choices. I have size choices. I can develop the image and control the colors and a lot of other aspects of the ratio. But this image happens to be very, very good right out of the camera and the card. So what we're going to do now is we're going to run the image from the computer via another USB cable directly into our Mitsubishi printer. This is a Mitsubishi high-speed event printer. It'll knock out a 5x7 or 4x6 inch print in approximately 9 seconds. So let's go ahead and, while we're waiting, I'll go ahead and send the image, which is ready to print. Let's send it over to the printer. Press print. It tells me I'm going to send it to the Mitsubishi, so let's say it's okay. Everything is sized up, so it takes approximately 3 seconds for the image to queue up in the printer. So that's a printer. You can hear it click on. It's now operating. It'll take approximately 9 or 10 seconds. It takes 3 passes, and then it produces the image, as you can see here. So we have a very, very nice shot of Corey with our Mitsubishi event printer. Now the cost of prints, which includes the media cost, and that's the paper and the ribbon from this machine. A 4x6 print cost approximately 21 cents, and a 5x7 print cost approximately 49 cents. So the cost of the prints is very, very nominal. It's very, very fast. You can go to an event and actually do hundreds and hundreds of images and have them available for your clientele. The final step in this process would be to take the print and put it in a delivery device, and what I like to recommend and use are these black folders. They come in sizes from 8x10 to 5x7 and 4x6. Once the print is put into this folder, it gives it much added value, and now it's ready to deliver to the customer. So event printing is a very easy process. If you call us here at Showcase Photo and Video in Atlanta, Georgia, we can take you through the entire process and give you a complete listing of everything you need for a successful event photo business. Thank you very much.